we're going to be going to an election. We're going to have a new leader of the Liberal Party. And then the gloves are off and we see who wins this political fistfight in Canada.
Yesterday, Justin Trudeau called a by-election for the riding of Halifax. But how is that possible? We thought that you couldn't call a by-election within 9 months of a scheduled general election.
Let's take a look. Prime Minister sets April date for by-election in Halifax riding. Vote will select replacement for former Liberal MP Andy Fillmore.
So this is the news release that Elections Canada had put out back on September the 5th. It reads, on Tuesday, September 3rd, the Chief Electoral Officer of Canada, Stéphane Perreault, received official notice from the Speaker of the House of Commons that the seat for Halifax in Nova Scotia is vacant. A by-election will take place to fill the vacant seat. The date of the by-election must be announced between September the 14th and March the 2nd of 2025. This announcement signals the start of the by-election period. The by-election must be held on a Monday at least 36 days, but no more than 50 days after the by-election is announced. Therefore, the earliest date that the Halifax by-election can be held is Monday, October the 21st, 2024. So the by-election is currently scheduled for April the 14th of 2025. Now, our general election is supposed to be scheduled for October the 20th of this year, 2025. So that's clearly within 9 months. What's going on here? So I'm not sure, honestly, if we've explained this incorrectly in the past or if the sources that we were using to explain it were incorrect. However, it appears that the date of the by-election is less important than the date of the actual vacancy. Andy Fillmore stepped down on September the 3rd of 2024, which is more than 13 months away from the date of the scheduled election. As we can see in the bottom paragraph of this slide, which we took from Elections Canada's website, the date of issuance, or when they call the by-election, must fall between the 11th and 180th days after the Chief Electoral Officer receives the warrant from the Speaker. In this case, it was received on September the 5th, so they have between 11 and 180 days to actually call the election. And then above and beyond that, the election period, or the by-election period, is between 36 and 50 days, and that by-election must fall on a Monday.
So many people have been writing us emails saying, does this mean that a general election is not going to happen? Because why would the Liberals call a by-election if they're going to just call a general election? Well, this is the thing. So as Tanya explained, and as Elections Canada actually shows, the Liberals actually didn't have a choice but to call a by-election because they waited the maximum amount of time in order to call the by-election. What that tells me is they actually thought that a general election, A, would happen earlier, or they were hoping that they're going to be able to get their polling numbers up, you know, in order to actually have another by-election. So where this put Justin Trudeau and the Liberals was, like, he literally had to call this by-election on March 2nd. That was the last possible day. So he's called this by-election because he waited so long that he ran out of time. Legally, he had to.
Right. And now the by-election will be on April the 14th of 2025. What happens if they call a general election? We have been hearing from our EDA and from others in the political scene that calling a general election the second week in March is likely. That's the week of March 10th.
Brian Lilly also reported that he's hearing that a general election is going to be called on March 16th.
Right. So what happens if there's a general election that's called in March? What happens to this by-election in Halifax? Well, what happens is the writ for Halifax is canceled, and then Halifax, instead of having a by-election, will go to general election with the rest of the country.
Right. So the by-election is effectively canceled. null and void, and that competition just rolls into the general election, and then whomever wins that seat wins the seat, and then the seat is filled when the new government forms. So this is the the interesting thing when it comes to procedure in government. You can have procedure that sounds like it's favoring one party, sounds like it's throwing a wrench into things, when in fact it's actually just humming along, and a prime minister that doesn't really have anything else to do, doesn't want to do anything else, waited the maximum amount of time to actually call this by-election, was forced to do it just because. So no doubt the Liberal candidate that is running for Halifax is just going to be sitting there twiddling their thumbs for the next couple of weeks, knowing that there's going to be a general election called immediately after that. So if anything, it gives the candidates in the Halifax riding a couple more weeks of campaigning before the actual general election is called.
And there is a Liberal candidate in the Halifax riding, so it is extremely unlikely that Mark Carney would try to run in this by-election to gain a seat.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to actually see where Mark Carney is going to run. Now, he launched his campaign out of Edmonton. Randy Boissonneau has said, I want to run, but is supporting Chrystia Freeland. So.
Well, and it's important to note that the leader of the party essentially has final say over who runs and where. So he could easily veto the running of any of the current MPs or any of the candidates.
And let's just get real here, folks. It would be a very bad idea for any of the Liberal candidates, if they ended up becoming leader of the Liberal Party, to allow Randy Boissonneau to run again. Like, this is a guy that has offended a whole swath of their base because of his scandals.
I was going to say there's a lot of issues surrounding Randy Boissonneau right now and his company. So the Liberals may not renew his nomination. We have no idea.
It would be very unwise of them to do so. And it's also interesting. You have all these Liberals that are just saying, oh, I'm not running again. I'm not running again. I'm not running again. If the Liberals were polling so great, why would you not run? And the answer is they don't believe the polls, either. At least these candidates that are deciding not to run. And I think it's because they're hearing it in their riding. Like, they're hearing it from their door knocking, they're hearing it from their EDA, they're hearing it from their volunteers. So they have a real sense of what's going on. Now, Mark Carney and his circle of super friends in the Liberal cabinet, they're going to have to go to an election, and the Governor General may even be the person that actually dissolves Parliament when Mark Carney becomes leader of the Liberal Party, because he doesn't have the confidence of the House. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but either way, we're going to an election very, very shortly, folks. I don't think there's going to be anything that can stop it. So there's not going to be any 2026 wait. There's not going to be, a scenario where we're going to be stuck with Justin Trudeau, like all of the doom and gloomers are saying. We're going to be going to an election. We're going to have a new leader of the Liberal Party. And then the gloves are off, and we see who wins this political fistfight in Canada.